Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Transform Your Confidence show, where I'm always so happy to see you guys tune in each week. You guys know that I always talk about this. I love to get your support each and every week. If you could please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Open Chest Confidence Academy so you never miss an episode, and also on podcast platforms at the Transform Your Confidence show, I would really appreciate that. Well, this week I've been focusing on branding and marketing, and this past Sunday was part one of my two-part series, with this, of course, being part two, where I chatted with well-known marketing expert Rohit Bhargava, and we talked about the concept behind marketing methods that work in today's overload culture. Here's a bit about Rohit before we go into part two of our conversation. Rohit Bhargava is the best-selling author of 7 books on marketing. He has keynoted events in over 32 countries and is the marketing adjunct professor at Georgetown University. He is on a mission to inspire more non-obvious thinking in the world, for which he launched the Nonobvious Company, where this past year he launched a popular podcast called the Nonobvious Insight Show, and has followed up with an online event called the Nonobvious Beyond Diversity Summit. He also has spoken at multiple events, keynoted around the world at 32 different countries, no less. And he brings some really interesting insights around the whole idea of how to incorporate marketing in your company, no matter what stage you're at, especially in today's economy. Here's part two of our deep dive on what you need to know about upping your game in marketing so that your brand can be seen, heard, and advocated for. For anyone that's just tuning in, we are talking to Rohit Bhargava. He is a multiple best-selling author. His wheelhouses are around marketing, branding, and many other things. He also has this incredible company, the Nonobvious Company, which I would love you to also tap in a little bit about that. But before we do, can you let anyone out there who is a aspiring author, or perhaps is looking for kind of, their next opportunity with the next book, what's the name of your company and how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the publishing company is called Ideapress. The website is ideapresspublishing.com. You can see all of our past books there, and you can also get instructions if you do have a manuscript that you'd like for us to consider. Definitely there's a way to submit that so that we can take a look at it. We're sort of flooded at the moment, but we will get back to you. We're sort of making our way through everything. But we always try and be helpful.
What a great problem to have. Great problem to have.
Look, during the pandemic, it's like people were grounded, and a lot of people decided, rightly so, that they were going to use the time to write the book that they had in their head, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that this is not just for us. I think that in the publishing industry across the board, like in terms of sales numbers, 2020 was actually one of the best years for publishers.
Wow, that's
in terms
interesting.
of selling books, certain types of books. So it was sort of a flip industry in that sense. But that's how to get information about that. The Nonobvious Brand has lots and lots of different elements. We have a book awards program. I host a weekly show called the Nonobvious Insights Show. We have guidebooks that compete with the Dummies Guides, the Nonobvious Guide series. And one of them is actually all about marketing and branding. So a lot of what I shared here, the Nonobvious Guide to Marketing and Branding, has all of those things, including like playbooks and one-page marketing strategy templates and all that stuff. So super easy to just get that, and you can basically get everything I've been sharing with you in a book format.
That's incredible. And how can people get a hold of this?
So all of that will be at nonobviousguides.com. Or nonobvious.com has kind of everything linked from it. So it has this the books, the book awards, and then also we hosted a few summits. We did a diversity summit recently that you know about. So like that's linked from there as well. So there's just like lots of different elements of this whole Nonobvious brand, and that's all from there as well.
So can you just share a little bit about kind of the premise and idea behind the Nonobvious concept, because I know what it is and I love it, and I'd love people to know a little bit more about it.
Yeah, the non-obvious brand is essentially about getting people to be more open-minded and to teach them how to do that in order to be more successful in business, in life, and personally. I personally think that people who are open-minded, they're able to be more resilient. They're able to adapt to the world around them. They're less um, likely to get into trouble for various things,
Mm-hmm.
and they just are better leaders in general. And so the brand Non-Obvious is all about inspiring more of that. We help people to be more interesting. We help them to be more open-minded, and we share content, we share lessons, we share books, and just lots and lots of content around this idea that the more non-obvious people there are in the world, the better the world will be.
Right. Amen to that. And what I'm hearing you say, Rohit, for me, which is so fundamental, is you are arming people with tools and resources to help them grow in whatever direction it is they're looking to grow in. That's what I'm
Yeah,
hearing you say.
that's exactly right, and I think that a big part of this brand is to remind people that it's not just certain types of people who can think this way. And I spent a long time doing a lot of trend work. People have called me a futurist in the past, and there's a temptation when you see people like that who kind of predict what's going to be important and talk about trends, that you look at them and say, oh, they're the ones who can do that because they have a special skill set in doing that, and that's not something I can do. And the Non-Obvious brand has always been about teaching people how to think in this way, to see the unusual, to spot those patterns, to put those pieces together. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's something that all of us can learn how to do. And I've seen that over and over again with people who think, oh, I'm not particularly creative in that way. I don't describe myself in that way. And yet when they start to use some of these techniques, they all of a sudden get access to ideas no one else is thinking of. They find the intersections between industries, and they really shift the way that they think, and it makes them more successful because they're just,
Right.
if they're working for someone else, they become more indispensable at work. And if they're an entrepreneur who's starting their own thing, they differentiate their own thing more easily because they can see the opportunities that maybe they were missing before.
Right. And it's interesting you're saying that, because it's kind of a lot around this word that people are throwing around a lot now, which is intrapreneur, you know,
Yeah.
and I love that word, and I love the idea behind it, because it's very different from kind of the, industrial revolution, where every single piece of the infrastructure depended on each other, and your value was just housed in that one arena. And now we're living in a world where a lot of the disruption that's happened has happened by people that don't come from these huge organizations. It's come from people who have really had kind of more of a whole mind approach to their creativity. They've allowed themselves to be able to look beyond what they're being taught in, colleges and universities. And I know that's a whole other, discussion that we can have. But, this whole idea that, if you're the person that is employing people, or you're the person that is being employed, that is one part of the relationship. And the other part is, what are you doing when you're there? Right.
Right. Yep.
Because and I feel oftentimes, and I do this in my own company, it's why people, work with me for so many years, actually, is because, I really do believe in empowering them with what they need to do their job. So I don't feel I'm the person that knows how to answer that question better than they do. So to me, it's like, without even knowing, what that word ever meant, it's what I've always been doing. I've always,
That's great.
you know what I'm saying, Rohit?
Yeah, I mean that's what especially when it comes to coaching, right? That's what people are
Yes.
looking for, because the difference between oftentimes coaching and consulting, right, is we
Mm-hmm.
hire the consultants to tell us the answer, and
Yes.
we hire the coaches to help us find the answer for ourselves.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the difference.
and they're actually different skill sets, right? Like
Yes.
what I found is the people who are amazing consultants are oftentimes not very good coaches,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so it's really difficult to find people who could be both. But what
Right.
ends up happening, I think, for a lot of people who go independent and who do find their calling in helping people and helping businesses, is they start to identify for themselves, what do they find more fulfilling?
Mm-hmm.
Do they find it more fulfilling to really get in and be a problem solver, right? Because some people have that problem solver mentality and they're great at it.
Mm-hmm.
They could look at the business, marketing consultants specifically could look at somebody's business and say, look, this is the reason why you're getting dominated by your competition. If you change your message to this, if you put ads over here, if you change your brand to say this as a leading message, you will transform your business and you'll grow. And if someone does those things and takes advantage of those things, they will grow their business and their marketing will be much better, which is different than the coach that comes in and says, look, you need to inspire your team. You need to be a better leader. Mm-hmm. And you already know that. I'm not telling you something you don't know. And here are the ways that you could do that. And it's more focused on developing the self. It's
right.
And the coaches find that really fulfilling, right? Mm-hmm. The great coaches. They don't need to go in and fix the problem. They're more about helping to sort of bring that person along on a journey and be the one who can sort of show them the next thing that they need to do.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I have done both. And I think that the thing that I've learned from it has been, when do you need to do which? I think that's kind of what it comes down to. At what point do you truly need to come in and help people navigate what's going on because they don't have the infrastructure to do it? And at what point do you know that if you ask the choice questions and help them expand their vision on something, that they can very readily come up with where they need to go? And I think that that's what my experience has been. I don't know about you. I mean, what's your experience been? Because I know that you're also a professor. So, you come at it from a teaching perspective, but teaching is also kind of like being a coach and a consultant and a mentor, kind of depending on what you're looking to accomplish with your students. Talk a little bit about that as well, because I mean, you have your fingers in so many different areas, which to me tells me that there's a lot of different modes of expansion even happening to you along your journey as a professional.
Yeah, it really has been for me. And what has been amazing for me as an entrepreneur is having two businesses that really bring out two different elements of me. So when it comes to the Nonobvious Company, a lot of what I do is speaking, facilitating, being out there as the guy. So I get to be in front and center. Before the pandemic, I was on big stages. When they eventually come back, that's where I'll go back to. Probably less than before, because now I've realized how much I like actually being home and not traveling to 50 events a year. But that requires a certain type of personality. You have to be out there. People want to talk to you. You have to love talking to people. You have to be or make yourself more extroverted in how you behave to live up to that. You need to have an ego, not to be an asshole, but you need to feel like you belong on the big stage. Otherwise you can't command the big stage. And then I've got the other company, the Ideapress company, which is behind the scenes. I mean, when you publish someone else's book, your name's not on it. You're not the person in front and center. You're behind the scenes and you're making sure that everything is going well and you're making them the hero of it, which is what great coaches do. And so for me, I get a chance, and similar to professors, the good ones, right? They focus on the learning of the student instead of trying to be a rock star professor, which is about them. So for me, the nice thing about having both of those things is that it allows me to have my fix of being the one on stage to get your ego fed, but not to be reliant on it. And to be okay when you're not that person and when you need to be behind the scenes, and you can shift yourself to actually be that person. And what I find is that a lot of times when you look at people who become rock stars or music stars, they never find the balance because they're always forced to be that person out there and they get treated like that person. And eventually they turn into assholes because they're surrounded by people who are constantly pushing them to be that way. And for me, what I found is great benefit in not always having to be that. I can be that sometimes, but for me, it's more like something you step into and you can step out of. Right. And I've never been to the point, like in what I do, I'll never be at that point where like paparazzi follow me around or anything like that. So like, that's an extreme that I never want. right?
Well, you never
No,
know.
I'm pretty sure that will never happen to me. And I'm good with that. Like, I don't want that kind of life, right? Because being known and being recognized is one thing. Like, if I travel to 50 events a year and once or twice a year somebody recognizes me in an airport, I'm good with that. Like, that's enough celebrity for me, right? I don't need any more than that. Like, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And you know what I'm hearing you say here, Rohit, just for anyone that's joining us, is that, know what you need. Like, be honest about the person that you are. And that's the best way for you to be fulfilled as the person you need to be. And sometimes you want to be in the limelight, other times you don't. And there's so many variables in between all of that. And I think it's about being honest about what you need and why you need it, and then doing the work to make it happen, or finding the resources to help you propel yourself. And these are the kinds of things that I feel are important for us to know in life. Because another thing I notice a lot, especially in social media, I know you notice this a lot as well, is how people just love to bandwagon off of something that happened to work well for one individual, and somehow this cookie cutter ideology is not working for you. Therefore, you feel that you are less than a human being than that person is. When in fact, what the goal should be in life, the goal we should have as humans, is to be honest about what our needs are fundamentally as who we are as an individual, before we can kind of step out and see what are the tools and resources available to me out there that can help me get there, instead of doing it the other way around. I mean, that is just a philosophy that I really do believe in, because I've been both versions of that. And I know which one has actually, empowered me to kind of like the person that I've become more than anything else, if you know what I'm saying. I know you know what I'm saying.
I mean, look, I totally do. My relationship to social media has sort of shifted as well. I mean, I used to check it a lot more often. And like now, I was kind of joking with my wife about the relationship that I have to Facebook is now the same relationship that I have to like getting a dental cleaning, which is like, it feels, your teeth feel good afterwards, right? Like, they feel really clean. It's something that you should do, but during it and leading up to it, you're not looking forward to it. And that even while it's happening, like, you still probably won't feel all that good. And so it's just something that you have to do, but you wouldn't do it every week, and you wouldn't do it every day. And so for me, I check Facebook now maybe once every 2 weeks, and that's plenty for me. I don't have it on my phone. I barely have it on my computer, and it automatically logs me out every time. So I have to find my login to actually log back into it.
Which is a good thing. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. I mean, it's intentional that I've set it up in that way, right?
Yeah.
And so, because Facebook was the major time suck, that was the major problem. I find that even when I have Instagram, I don't tend to really check it all that often. And so I do have that on my phone, but that's 3 clicks away.
But
and
you're
Twitter,
a LinkedIn
I never
man.
check.
But you're a LinkedIn man. That's your
LinkedIn,
world.
LinkedIn, I do check because the people who, it's self-reinforcing, right? Because the people who contact me, it tends to be about business things. It drives my business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm looking for new customers. I'm looking for new connections. So that is the place where I do tend to connect with people. But even there, I don't waste a lot of time there, right? I really am specific about limiting my engagement amount of time that I spend on any of these different platforms, because otherwise you really get sucked into it. I mean, it's like the thing your mom always used to tell you, like, you don't sit there eating ice cream from the actual thing, right? Because you don't know how much you ate.
Right.
Like, you always take it out, you put it in a bowl, and like, that's how you should eat anything, right? So otherwise you don't know what you ate.
Oh, I love that.
And social media is kind of the same thing. Like, if you don't set yourself a time limit, or like at least find some way of limiting yourself, and then teaching that to your kids too, right? You just end up sitting there and you don't even know how much time's passed.
Absolutely.
And that's not good.
No, absolutely. Well, as a serial entrepreneur, I want to, pick your brain on one aspect, especially, since we're living in the world that we're living in right now. I mean, if a person is looking to go into business for themselves, because a lot of people are looking at that as being the way forward, because a lot of people are losing their jobs, and there's just not a lot of opportunity to be hired as it was previous to the pandemic. So especially since now we are suffering from the repercussions of a pandemic economy, which, you know, has two major work-related effects. People are losing jobs, as I mentioned, and you know, there's a need to solicit businesses online now, right? Because you can't, the brick and mortar is not as, you know, available to us as it was because of this. So I guess my question for you here is twofold. The first part of that is, why should, you know, what is it that they should be looking at if they are looking to market themselves, to find a job online? Like, what should that person be doing today?
So I would focus on a few things. Number one is teaching myself the things that I don't know but should know.
Mm-hmm.
And when I focus on that, for example, like when I was doing, you know, when our whole team actually was doing a lot of work to put together this summit that we decided to do, which was a virtual gathering of more than 200 speakers
Mm-hmm.
on many different topics related to diversity. My network of people that I already knew was pretty much exhausted after I got my first 25 or 30 speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I had to go and, although I wasn't looking for a job, I had to go and start learning, because I knew in my head, for example, okay, I want to have an amazing conversation about diversity and fitness and health. Who's talking about that?
Mm-hmm.
Who's known? Who's getting a lot of engagement? Who's written a book about it? Who has been talking about it on social media? Who's been on the news about it? And as soon as I started learning about that, I started identifying, okay, these people are talking about it. This person's getting a lot of traction. These are the people who I might want to invite and who I might want to talk to. And by doing all that research, if my goal had been different, right? If instead of saying, okay, I'm putting together a great panel and who should I be listening to, my thought was, I want to get a job working in fitness.
Mm-hmm.
I would do the same thing. I would go out and I would try and learn who's talking about it, who's engaging, who can I start to connect with? Can I comment on their posts? Can I become known by them? So that when I reach out to that same person 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, and I say, hey, I've been following you for 4 weeks. I've read every single thing you've ever done. I've watched every single second of every video of everything you've posted. You are brilliant. I love you. I'm trying to find a job in this. Can you suggest something for me? I just want to get into this space. I'm a huge admirer of yours. Can you help me?
I love that.
You would be amazed at what sort of response you would actually get from someone when you did the work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, but you might be thinking about this strategy and saying, oh, screw that. I'll just go and email 12 people because my chances will be 12 times better, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
The reason this works is because you did the work and you spent 4 weeks almost, not quite, but almost cyber stalking that person to know everything that they did, so that when you do reach out, you actually are a fan. You're not pretending.
Mm-hmm.
That shows up and that pays off, because you would be amazed at how few people do that.
Actually, I don't know anyone that does what you just said. It's an amazing strategy, and it makes sense because, you know, if a person sees that you truly are bought into what you're saying, and no one's anyone's fool, not in today's world, right? Kids can spot, you know, fake a mile off, let alone, you know, an adult who is trained to do that, especially when you get to a certain position in your professional career. So I think that's a really, really great takeaway for everyone out there, because, you know, why is it that we have to do it more is better? It's not always more is better. Sometimes it's more impactful is better. And that's kind of what I'm hearing you say here, Rohit.
Yeah, I mean, look, my favorite story that I used to tell on stage back when I was going on stage was about Einstein. And everyone knows the story of him writing his special theory of relativity. And you might know what he was doing at the time, which is he was a patent clerk. But the question I always ask to audiences, and nobody knows the answer, is why in the world of physics at that time in the early 1900s, would anybody who was a serious physicist take seriously someone who was a patent clerk, who was not a physicist, who wrote an article that got published in a German physics journal saying everything that you all have been studying for years is actually wrong. And this is correct. Why would anyone believe that person, right? Doesn't make sense. And yet Einstein was not only believed, but celebrated within his lifetime. And the world of science is filled with people who were right about the world being round, but they weren't appreciated in their time. And then after they die, they get recognized and they were ahead of their time. But like that didn't happen to Einstein. And the question I always ask people is why not? And people don't realize that the reason that Einstein was recognized is because he found one guy, the one guy. And the one guy that he found, his name was Max Planck. And Max Planck was a legend in the world of physics. And Max Planck read Einstein's paper and said, you know, he might be onto something. And it was Planck who helped Einstein get the first professorship that he got. And the two were lifelong friends, even though Planck was, I think, 20 something years older than Einstein. How many people do you need to start your business or to help you take off? Maybe just one, if it's the right person.
Right. And that's the fundamental piece here. So guys, this is really something powerful. I really hope that you are heeding and making notes and, and that you kind of sit with this idea of, less is more or is more less, like, really think about what it is you're doing and what you're looking to accomplish and what would be the best way for you to accomplish that. And as Rohit just mentioned here, Einstein didn't go and try to prove it to the world. He just had to prove it to the one person that had the power of authority. The other piece that I wanted to ask you there was, so someone who is looking at starting a business, how do they find a gap in the marketplace? Like, what are some things that they can do to figure that piece out?
The absolute best way to find a gap in the marketplace is to become a customer yourself and to experience the gap for yourself. So we started the publishing company because I was an author who wanted something that didn't exist. And I decided, along with Chovy, my wife, to start it for ourselves. And that to me is a undeniably good way to figure out a gap in the market, because you experience the gap and the need for something through your experience of not being able to find it. And if you watch any of these shows like Shark Tank or any of those kind of entrepreneurial shows, you'll see so many of those stories are someone said, hey, I'm a mom and I wanted this to be available and it wasn't, so I made it. It's a very successful entrepreneur's journey way to start. It's not the only way to do it, but it's proven over and over again that it actually does work.
So Rohit, considering the rate at which new businesses fold outside of even the current pandemic-induced circumstances, how do you see sales and marketing working together to maximize revenue goals? I mean, some sort of a simple formula, because obviously, things depend on so many variables. What would you say could be a simple formula that people should consider, especially if they're a commercial business enterprise?
Yeah. So my best analogy for sales versus marketing and how they should work together is, if you imagine you have a car dealership, the marketing is what gets people in the door to even try the car in the first place. The sales is what closes the deal. So you can get people in the door through all sorts of different ways, but eventually when they get in the door, they're going to sit in the car. They're going to listen to the sound the car door makes when it shuts. They're going to take the test drive. And if they don't like the car, and if they don't like the sound of the car door when it shuts, they're not going to buy the car. So you're not going to convert. Now, that doesn't mean your marketing didn't work. It means your sales didn't work. And it means your product's not good or good enough for that person. So the challenge, I think, for us as business owners is to fix what actually needs fixing instead of blaming the wrong thing for not working. If you have marketing that's bringing people to your website and nobody buys anything, that doesn't mean your marketing's not working. It means something on your website's not converting. And same thing if you actually have a physical storefront. The marketing gets people in the door. It gets them to pick up the phone and call. It gets them to your website. What you do from there is all about conversion. And you have to be able to convert to whatever the action is that you want people to take, whether it's booking an appointment or buying a product or walking through the door, whatever.
I have so many questions that I could still ask you, but I'm going to wrap it up now with my final question, Rohit, and it's this. What should businesses be doing to get more clients right now during a down economy? One or two things.
I would say focus on giving enough so that you create more of a relationship with people. What we have focused on with the Non-Obvious brand over the last year has not been about generating revenue. It's been about creating more useful content. It's about having more conversation, and it's about growing our audience. Because I know that if I have 25,000 people on my list, or if I have 50,000 people on my list, eventually when I'm going to sell an online course, or if I'm going to promote a book, I'm going to get more people who actually buy that if I have more people that I've given value to over a set amount of time, because I've constantly given them things. So every week I'm writing a newsletter where I'm finding the most interesting stories of the week, and I'm sharing that newsletter, and nobody pays for it because I'm continually giving them value. And I'm spending hours and hours every week to find those stories, because I'm building that relationship with all of those people who then are followers of me or followers of my brand. And eventually, when I do have something that I need their help with, I ask for their help, and they're happy to help, because they're like, look, I've been reading all of your insights. They've been useful for me. I've shared them with my boss. It's made me look good. It helped me get a promotion. If you want me to buy a $15 book, like, I'm in, right?
I love it. How can people get a hold of you, Rohit?
So my personal site is my full name, rohitbhargava.com. Or you can go to nonobvious.com and see all of the different things we're doing there. I've got a YouTube channel, which is also rohitbhargava.com. Lots of old videos and interviews and things like that. And again, every week I'm doing a new show for the Non-Obvious Insights show. So you can find me there, or on pretty much any social media platform that you use. I'm probably there occasionally.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your valuable insights, Rohit. You know that I'm going to ask you to come back. There's so much more that I want to be able to add value to, the audience, wherever they are in the world, listening, watching, or reading this as a blog. I thank you so much for your time, and come back and see us.
Of course I will. Thank you, Raj. It's always fun to talk to you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for staying until the end, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the show and will action the many insights that were shared. If there's one takeaway that I always share at the end of each and every show, it's this: that in order to create a bulletproof strategy, you must marry knowledge with action and accountability. Without these working together, you are limiting your capacity to actualize your greatness. And trust me when I say this, I know what it feels like to be on both sides of that fence. So if you're at a point in your life where you're struggling to figure out how to action the next really, really great growth journey in your life, I want you to keep tuning into this show, because we will be bringing multiple different ways that you can action the knowledge that we bring to the table, and you can find accountability through the insights and, through the wisdom that's shared. Because at the end of the day, without the action of the knowledge and the accountability to support that, finding that next level of growth in your personal and professional greatness becomes a really challenging journey. And I'm of the firm belief that if you want to ensure that you're able to get to that next level in your life, that there's certain things that have to be in place. One is you need to have a vision of where it is that you need to go. Second, you need to have some sort of a guru, mentor, guide who is already where you're wanting to go and can help you action the steps from where you're at to get to where you want to go, which is where they have got to have already been, or they have got to have, gotten to beyond that phase. And then the other thing is, and I'm a true believer in this, is that when you get there, I really do feel in order for you to be able to maintain a sustained way of ensuring that you continue to be able to excel to the next level, is this other form of energy that's important. And it's called service. It's the give back. The give back for me in my life, and in the life of many people that I've actually worked with and seen greatness happen in, those people that we look up to and we aspire to be like, the people that we feel are the untouchables. They are very touchable, because what they've accomplished is something that each and every person out there listening to this, watching this, or even reading this on our blog, you can take those steps and you can implement them, you can action them, and you can get to where you need to get. Because if one person can do it using that formula, so can you. So I want you to think about that. The only difference is, there's other variables that you have to think about. Things like, where are you at in your journey? What are the tools that you have at your disposal? Where can you go to get more tools to be able to, give you the proper roadmap to get to where you need to get to? What are the mechanisms that you need to ensure that you have the motivation and the drive is consistent for you to do the work to get there? These are some of the things that, I have really kind of tapped into and honed in on. And they're the things that I want you guys to kind of sit with, and I want you to take away each and every show with this knowledge. And if this show or any other show has been of any value to you, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to share with everyone you know that you feel this kind of show would benefit. And I want you to invite them to our YouTube channel, where all our episodes are housed at the Open Just Confidence Academy. And I also want you to go and tell them to go check it out on podcast stations. And there you just need to search for the Transform Your Confidence show. All right, guys. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I look forward to seeing you next week when I have another great episode that I feel is going to be very valuable to your journey or to someone that you know. Until then, have a great week.